if you've just seen part one, they just know that innocent part of what we were doing. But that was just the beginning. If you think these girls were great in movie one, wait till you see where they can go.
Welcome back to Wicked, the official podcast, your all-access pass into Oz. Each week, we're taking you behind the curtain of one of the most beloved stories ever told, following the cast and creative team who brought Jon M. Chu's epic vision to life. If you're tuning in for the first time, I'm Chris Murphy. I'm a staff writer at Vanity Fair, and I'll be your guide, part superfan, part storyteller, on this epic journey full of friendship, fate, and magic. If Wicked felt like stepping into a dream, that's because hundreds of people were working in perfect harmony to make it look that way. Behind the shimmer and splendor was a massive balancing act. 2 films shot at one time. To pull this off, every detail had to be choreographed to make sure the heart of Oz never stopped beating. Under the vision of director Jon M. Chu and producer Marc Platt, the cast and crew brought a story of friendship, courage, and transformation to life on a scale unlike anything seen before. Today, you'll hear from the people who made that magic possible. Writers Winnie Holzman and Dana Fox reveal how the story grew beyond the stage to fill 2 full-length films. Oscar winners Nathan Crowley and Paul Tazewell take us inside the look, feel, and design of Oz as it took shape. And our witches, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, as well as Jonathan Bailey, Ethan Slater, and Bronwyn James, share what it meant to live and act between 2 different Ozian eras at once.
Absolutely remarkable.
Even though we make it feel easy and seem easy, part one, that's all people know, it actually was extremely technical feat to go back and forth, and we all had to be in complete cohesion and understanding of where we were in the story emotionally, and I had to have really have a lot of clarity of what we were trying to say from the very beginning. Of course, that evolves as we're shooting, as we find things and create things as these characters came to life. But we had to have a master plan, and that was always there from the very beginning.
Here's Jon M. Chu.
And in movie 2, it is really the college, once you come out of college, going into the world, what do they say? Great love and great suffering awakens the soul.
Wow.
And I think that's what For Good is all about, is like, okay, you've made choices. Now you have to stick to them or change them. And it's about courage to stand your ground or find new roads for yourself, and that just is more complicated. And everything from the costumes to the production design to the camera work would change according to what we were shooting at that time.
I heard that you apparently cut some of the second movie to show the studio and whatnot to justify being like, hey, this can't just be one film. We need to have 2 separate movies. Can you talk to me about that early cut and that experience? Because that's so fascinating to me.
Yeah, because we always knew it was one bigger story in a sort of multi-year experience. I needed to know where we were headed. I could not just cut movie 1 blind. And so we always thought of it as a full through line. And so when we were editing, when we first finished wrapping our actually shoot, because we had shot them literally at the same time. We came home, I told our editorial, we got to do both. I know I only have a certain amount of weeks to show my first cut of movie 1, but we got to actually do 2 movies at once. And so everyone was on overtime so that we could at least piece together movie 2 enough that I could watch both back to back. So my first screening was not just one movie, it was both movies.
Really?
Knowing that movie 2 we would pay more attention to later and that we would really get in there and finesse, but I had to know, because I needed to know that that movie 1 felt like a complete movie, that it didn't feel like a half and that you were just waiting for another thing. And that's the great, I think, accomplishment of what we did in part 1, is that it did, and Defying Gravity was the center of that. Before that, when we're developing the script, movie 2 was always less conventional than movie one. Movie one is very much about structure. It is, you get your I Want song, you get the setup, you get the payoff, you get this run. Now, she doesn't confront her big enemy of the wizard yet. So we had to restructure, that script to make sure that the big enemy wasn't necessarily the wizard. The big enemy was her own expectations and her own understanding of who she is. So that defying gravity was the defeat of the fear inside of her. It was her standing up and saying, I don't have to control these emotions. There's nothing wrong with how I feel. This is who I am and who I'm going to be. And that was the trajectory of movie one. And in movie two, what we realized, we had to keep that thread going. When we were cutting the movie two, it was very helpful. And then we needed to see it. Should we take some things from movie two to put into movie one to help complete that? And what did we need to set up? Romance, relationships between Nessa and Bog, or little plants that we knew Elphaba was going to have to go through. And in their friendship, things that we'd have to pay off in movie two, things that would remind them of each other.
I'll say this much. She doesn't give a twig what anyone thinks.
Of course she does. She just pretends not to.
Once we had a rough cut of both, then I put movie two to the side. And I was like, I can't think about that. It's just too big of a meal, but I know where all the pieces are. I've sort of developed and processed what we got from the shoot. And so I just focused. I didn't look back at movie two until January of this year.
What?
So basically, when we were finishing sort of the awards stuff, then I rewatched it. So that space was really helpful because I grew up during that space. The girls grew up during that space. I had a better understanding of what the audience, where they were sitting with Wicked part one. So I could really hone in on what I wanted now in movie two that maybe I didn't know beforehand.
I mean, the decision to make it to what wasn't as complicated as it may seem. First of all, we start realizing we're going to have to cut a lot of the source to make one version, one film that wouldn't be so excessively long, be impossible. And we also knew the fans were wild about so much that we didn't want to have to cut.
This is producer Marc Platt.
Once you realize there was emotionally two different journeys, it kind of laid out as structurally two films. And in terms of the approach to it was each story, each screenplay, we developed them at the same time, but you do go chronologically. But constantly thinking, when you're in the middle of developing the second script, have we planted the seed properly in the first? So you're constantly going back and forth and cross-referencing. So you kind of do it as one piece, even though it's structurally 3 acts for film one and 3 acts for film two.
This was given a lot of thought and care and really, really talked about. Even before Jon and Dana came aboard, we were talking about it.
Winnie Holzman, who wrote the book for the Broadway musical, and screenwriter Dana Fox, her partner on the film adaptation, explain how the story of Wicked and the world of Oz grew large enough to justify the need for 2 separate movies.
Once Jon and Dana came aboard, Jon felt so confident that it could be 2 movies. And we began to see the ways that you could make, some of the ways that you could make the second movie feel like its own thing. And when we just started, Stephen, when I say we, I mean, Stephen and I just really jumped into that and went, yeah, because we had so much material. We had so many details and nuanced ideas that we wanted to put in. And Stephen had new song ideas. If we had made it one movie, there just wouldn't have been room for so much of what we wanted to explore. And, about the second movie, it's pretty thrilling to us, I think, how much we're exploring.
Well, and having worked with you, Winnie, I can say that one of the things I was so impressed with you and Stephen is that I did feel like you had explored so much when you were writing the play that this was your opportunity to do some of the things that you had hoped you could have done, but that you didn't have time to do on stage, or that you just obviously can't do for reasons that it's not a film. You can't disappear and watch someone fly through the sky.
Exactly.
But you guys interrogated all of these things so beautifully. And when you say it's sketched in, what's interesting about it is, now that I know how you work, it's like, I think Hemingway once said, if you know the whole shark, all you have to do is show the fin. And I think they knew the shark. So when they sketched in the fin, it wasn't like, oh, hey, this is just the fin. It's like, because they had gone so far with it that they knew that that was the right stuff to show people that would convey the maximum amount of character development and time passage and all the different things that you have to convey. So, in a sense, this second movie gave us all the opportunity to show a little more of the shark,
Yeah,
and so
definitely.
it was really fun to sort of pick at some of those ideas you guys had and say, okay, great, but like, how far can we go with that? And, a lot of it, I think for me, was about wanting to understand those characters better emotionally because, they both make these very difficult choices. So I loved that we got to explore deeper into both Elphaba and Glinda's sort of rationale of what lies were they telling themselves to try to make themselves feel okay about the fact that maybe these decisions didn't turn out the way they had wanted them to, and sort of see a little bit more of that emotional struggle that they both have with their choices and what it meant for each of them.
Yes, beautifully put. While we were in it, and this is what was making us laugh the other day, while we were in it, we were making up the process, but there was something, as you can imagine, Chris, very galvanizing about that for us. One of the things that was so great is we were both just determined that these movies would be the best we could make them. Nothing's perfect in this life. But for us we had very high aspirations.
Once the scripts were finished, the next question was a matter of pure wizardry. How do you shoot two epic films, not back to back, but simultaneously? Here's producer Marc Platt on how they made it all work.
We shot it efficiently, meaning when you're in one set, you shoot all the scenes in that set. And when you have interiors, we shot all the interiors in the wintertime and all the exteriors in the spring and summer. And so it didn't matter what the sequence was. It mattered more what you could shoot inside and outside. But to be able to go on one day from characters who are just meeting each other, let's say, or who don't have a history between them, to another day in the same week where so much has transpired between them in the story and where they're carrying so much different emotion and so much more emotion, and to have to sort of shift on that is a great credit to Jon's as a storyteller and a director, and his ability to anchor everyone in those moments, and also to all of the actors to have the ability to pivot and to carry into a scene something so different.
I think that's the thing that I'm most excited to talk about is that, when we were talking about just Wicked Part 1, we couldn't talk about the full breadth and meat of what this story actually is. And that we were shooting at the same time. So one day we'd be shooting Popular, and like 2 days later we'd be shooting pieces of For Good or moments where they're way more mature. So there is an extreme technical aspect to this. And I'm not just talking about our crew, I'm talking about our cast that had to jump.
Filming both of the films at the same time is like trying to pat your head and rub your stomach while also juggling knives and also like singing the national anthem.
Shooting scenes from both films at once meant living inside a constant time warp for the actors, with characters meeting for the first time one morning and then saying goodbye the next day. Bronwyn James, who plays Shen Shen, and Ethan Slater, who plays Bach, explain how they found their footing amidst the chaos.
It was very much like, I'm just going to go in and like, I'll know what I'm doing by whatever costume I've got. But because we'd had such a huge, intensive rehearsal months, we were all very much prepared for like, okay, so where am I going? Okay, so this is film 2, it's this scene. Okay, now I'm on. And thank God we had those rehearsals.
I mean, it is kind of complicated. It is like most films don't shoot in order, and a lot have like this massive, timeline where you have a lot of emotional arc to cover. And so it's sort of the same challenge. But I do think that like sort of cross-boarding 2 different movies and the different place in life, I don't know. The real answer is everybody was in the same boat. from Jon directing to every other person in the cast to everyone on the crew, the design teams, the wardrobe teams, like the dressers and hair and makeup.
Yeah.
You know, so like there was a real camaraderie to it. And I think that made it a lot easier because for two reasons. One is you have support, so you can like everybody is getting to that headspace together. And the other is accountability. You know, you're part of a project that everybody cares about. You don't want to let anyone down, so you do your work.
For People's Sexiest Man Alive, Jonathan Bailey, the balancing act didn't stop at Wicked. While playing Fiyero, he was also filming 2 television shows, Fellow Travelers and Bridgerton, living in 3 different worlds at once. This meant that Bailey had to keep shifting gears creatively.
The way I describe it is that when you read something that this is the way I respond to stuff. It feels like expanding foam. You read it and you just expand into it as an idea and you go, I know what this is. I know exactly. And in a way, sometimes I can't really even, I wouldn't be able to understand the story, the structure of the story and how it's compiled. And I'm in reverence to writers and because when you really respond to a character, it becomes like the instinct is there, and it's almost like you see the marble, like you see the statue in the marble. And obviously with something like Wicked, made and compounded massively by doing something like Fellow Travelers at the same time, filming Bridgerton, it's just like chipping away. You just immediately, if you get the opportunity, you just start chipping. And it was incredible producers who all worked together to allow it to happen. Because it was just literally down to hours at points, and going straight from an airport, like jumping on a plane, sleeping on the plane, going straight to a Bridgerton ball, going to sleep, waking up, going straight to the Ozdust Ballroom, going back. And I did that sort of twice. So I had about 4 days rehearsal before
4 days?
Going on set.
4?
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
That is not that much time, I would say.
No, I know. And also I just remember, I know I've said this before, but like Fiyero looked so different on the Friday before we started filming.
Really?
Because I did a camera test, and I tell you, if that ever surfaces, may that only surface at the 50th celebration.
I'm Fiyero, Tigala. Winky country.
Oh, Oz.
After the break, director Jon M, production designer Nathan Crowley, and costume designer Paul Tazewell reveal how they conjured Oz from the ground up, blending fantasy, craftsmanship, and fashion into one unforgettable world. And later, Cynthia, Erivo, and Ariana Grande return to share how they kept their performances grounded while living in 2 eras at once.
As a storyteller growing up watching movies, this is the dream. This is universal.
Welcome to Scene on the Screen, hosted by me, Jacqueline Coley from Rotten Tomatoes. We're your all-access pass to the people who bring your favorite Universal films to life. We play games. These are based off of quotes. Suppose a task cannot be completed.
From Wild Robot.
Talk movies.
It literally is a moving painting.
And spill the tea.
I hit our stunt performer so hard, they had the imprint of my shoe on his chest.
Check out Scene on the Screen, available now on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms.
Welcome back. We've heard how members of the cast brought heart to Wicked's 2-part story. Now it's time to talk about how the world itself took shape. Director Jon M and key members from the creative team explain how they transformed imagination into reality and the importance of every last detail.
It had to come in 2 folds, but it was always one epic saga. It was always one experience. Yes, separated by time, but not just for the characters, but for the audience themselves. But we built that into the experience. Like, you had to sit with movie 1 for a while. You had to watch it over and over again. You had to get to know these girls, fall in love with their hopes and dreams in the same way that they're committed to their hopes and dreams, and see the twist of, okay, there's a break, but they're going to make this decision. Everything's going to be, they made different decisions, but they're going to be okay. And yet in movie 2 is we get to actually like tie all those things up. We get to pull the string through, and see who do they actually decide to be in the long run. In a weird way, this is a layered experiential music box. I see it as.
Yeah.
Design isn't just what it looks like. It's what it feels like. It's how it works. So every cut, every color, every set shape, every costume, every VFX touch or music mix is designed to be part of a grander experience. So that's, I think, when people get done with this movie, which they don't know yet, it will all mix together in one giant, a multi-year experience.
It's a journey that you can't decide to solve. I think you have to find it.
This is production designer Nathan Crowley, who won an Oscar for his work on Wicked.
I always say this, it's like finding your nostalgia for The Wizard of Oz while making this incredible story about The Wicked, which is 2 films. And the second film becomes this sort of giant, emotional, mature journey.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal story, but at the same time, you design and it's really, because The Wizard of Oz, I've always, ever since I was a kid, I realized when I watched them dancing off down the yellow brick road towards the Emerald City, I could see the backdrop of the Emerald City in the background. It was very Art Deco-y. And I was really wanting to go closer, and knowing what I know now, I realized the backing was right there and the set stopped, so you couldn't go any further.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to go further, so here's my chance to step through the backing.
From sets to costumes, every inch of this American fairy tale was reimagined. Costume designer Paul Tazewell had actually been to Oz before. He won an Emmy for his work on The Wiz Live and became the first Black man ever to win an Oscar for Best Costume Design for his work on Wicked. Here's Paul.
It established just that tone of fantasy and also just magical theatricality that the film is with, I always remember the sepia tone going into Technicolor and what that was as a magical moment. And it's, it informs so much of how I, just envision creating a fantasy world. I mean, there's always an element of that. And I think that, it's as our primary American fairy tale by Frank L. Baum, I think that it really, it has packed a punch in inspiration. But to have the opportunity to create our own vision of what Oz would be, what would establish what was Ozian, still within the somehow connected into or folding in the overall culture of the Wizard of Oz, it really having free reign given by Jon to create this new world was so very exciting. I mean, it's a design challenge and project of a lifetime.
That was the hardest thing to find the design. So, I feel like once we sort of, and I knew we had to make it practically and we had to use locations. Otherwise, I couldn't let the audience be thrown out by visual effects. So there's tons of visual effects, but I had to balance it. And the balance is everything. And so I knew I was going to go on that journey where I had to build it. But the joy of building big sets is once you've sort of designed them, you get this 12-week period where construction, and I've known this construction team for 20 years, they take them 12 weeks to build a giant set or many giant sets. So we can sculpt it and manipulate it as we go, which means the joy of doing things practically is we can turn it into a piece of sculpture and we can adjust it and change it through, visible artistic methods rather than if you do it digitally, you're doing it in post and you're not there to adjust. So, yeah.
Wow.
And so I think that's the key to me is that process. And honestly, it's as old as The Wizard of Oz itself. It's called art direction.
Yeah, that's a really important, I think, aspect that I think not everyone, who watches films is so familiar with how it works and what the process is. And I would love to know, you mentioned that, Wizard of Oz, and it's Art Deco, there's inspirations, there's clearly, an Americana influence. Can you talk a little bit about your art direction, your influences, before we get into like the nitty gritty, like building everything up?
I've spent a lot of time working in Chicago. I've actually made 4 films there. And the mystery of the White City, which was the 1893 World's Fair there, I always felt fascinating. These sort of the great architects, great modernists, the people who invented the high rise, their influence on changing classical design. You see it all over New York, the sort of classical influences of Europe into the World's Fair. And it's really decorative. It sort of belongs sort of as an Americana, as a true original Americana sort of Beaux Arts Art Deco. It's a real mix.
Yeah.
And I knew that was the way into the Emerald City because of the decoration and the texture. And if I could add color to that, I knew we could be in business through that lead. And one of the reasons I was always fascinated by it was because people were amazed by it. And I feel like Emerald City had to have the same influence on the audience as the White City had on the 3 million visitors who went there. They had to be, you have to be amazed by it.
It's perfect. And I would love to know, how much time did you have? And are there any designs that you like, that you're like, oh, I'm so glad that we didn't do that, or I wish we could have made that work?
We had about sort of 6 months to prep really both films because they were done side by side. I didn't, everything we discarded was the right decision. And that's not a sort of arrogant, egotistical thing, because I work with a big team and it was like, no, it doesn't work. We have to be unprecious. Like if we get this wrong, and Jon was always there as a guiding light, and Marc Platt.
As Oz took shape, the stakes got higher and higher. Wicked wasn't just ambitious. It was a gamble, the kind of dream that could only work if everyone involved worked in tandem towards the same goal. Here's Jon M. Chu.
Yeah, the first movie was really scary to go into because it was a huge bet by the studio. If you think about like, no musical movie had made over $500 million in the, maybe 15 years ago with Mamma Mia or something like that. It was a huge risk. I mean, the last thing they put all this money into was Cats. So, and the people had declared the movie musical dead. People had declared cinema dead. So that's the environment we're walking to. And suddenly they're making this huge bet on me, the guy who made Universal less like $1 million on the opening weekend of Gem and the Holograms, which movie I love but didn't perform that well. That was the last movie they hired me for, and they had bet on me for this movie, and I wanted to make sure, because I loved Wicked, that was fulfilled in movie 1.
Jon M. Chu became the heartbeat of Wicked's production, guiding Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande through 2 different eras that demanded that they give everything that they had.
Jon is the one that sort of gives me the scope and like what are the parameters at any given time? Where am I at this moment? If I'm
flying around and
space
singing.
flying around, and so a lot of it is done with imagination. Now, if you don't have a director who can like let you know where you are at any given moment, you can't do the follow through, and you can imagine enough. But if there's no feedback about what's going on, then you can't do the thing you need to. And Jon was just so good at guiding everything all the time.
Yeah, just take someone with a heart like his who really understands that and gives people love and acceptance and a chance to be able to lead this. Aside from having such an extraordinary artistic vision and also to lead a set with such respect and care for everyone, every single person involved from every single department was heard, cared for, treated with so much love and care. He's just an extraordinary human being and the only person to do this job.
When you're filming 2 stories at once, even the smallest details can keep you grounded. For Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, hair, makeup, and even fragrance became their emotional trail markers, guiding them back to who Elphaba and Glinda were at each moment.
That's a choice.
I was helped by an immeasurable amount of people. I call them the green team. So Sim, Carmen, Alice, Olivia, Jaylee, who all helped me create her, make her real.
We had the help of our extraordinary hair and makeup department and Paul Tazewell, and those differences with our physical beings and different fragrances and different, that helped, of course, as well. Drop into a different mindset, even a different vocal placement, singing and speaking. Just everything helped establish the difference.
Sense memory is something I use a lot. So I had a perfume for Elphaba at different points of her life. So I had a perfume for Elphaba right at the beginning. I had a perfume, and I mix perfume. So there's a scent that's specific to Elphaba at the very beginning. Then there's a scent for Elphaba at the end of the first film. And then there's a scent for Elphaba in the second movie.
That's so good.
So that you get sense memory, this is who I am today.
This is who I am today.
Yeah.
And I'm in the audience and I can't smell you on screen, but
I know,
you can.
but I can. And I know what's going on in I don't know, there's something biological that happens when you smell something that reminds you of where you are. And so that's something that I would sort of apply. And little things like I adjusted the makeup. There is quite an extreme change from one to two, but it's just like little tiny changes. So the freckles, they sort of expand a little bit, and there's freckles in places that weren't there in the first film, and now there's freckles in place. So when I know what makeup we're in, when I see freckles, we got a freckle on my chin, it's Elphaba 2 for sure.
Behind every transformation was a team making sure Oz felt real, no matter the timeline. Makeup and hair designer Frances Hannon explains how she kept Elphaba and Glenda's evolution believable and beautiful across 2 films.
Well, you treat it as one, first of all. It's never two, even though the stage is in 2 acts, it's still one. You look at when you do your breakdown and your research, I look at how their timeline, how their story is, whether they got out of bed that day. Do you see Glinda put her makeup on? Does Elphaba loosen her hair? Is she cross? Is she angry? All their emotions and everything. You put that into what you can to give the audience a good experience. You put that into what you can visually. How do you make them look younger? With Elphaba, once we discovered the green, once we had the perfect green for Cynthia, that would even hold a huge close up on the big IMAX screen, the biggest one's going, and still look like her skin and not as if it's been painted on. You then work on how to make her look younger and how to make her look older, like using warmer hair colors to make her soften off her features, little freckles, all those tiny details. And then when she gets stronger in Wicked for Good and more emotional and freer spirited, shows that within her hair, longer, darker, wilder, show all the strengths and emotions that you can visually as well, which is something you can't do so much within the sets, or we certainly did it with Paul and I in the costumes and the hair and makeup.
As a designer, I'm thinking about what is their overall arc? Where are they going? Where are these characters going? And how do I make sure that the story is told in a consistent way that makes sense, even over 2 films? The way that the storytelling expanded, as far as, how much of the world of Oz that we see, all the different lands of Oz that we see and encounter, how we see their lives through time, and in that time, what their evolution is, and how that evolution, that visual evolution, underscores what their emotional journey is as well.
I love that. What you said about time is so important, just because there is a time jump between Wicked and Wicked for Good, as there is a time jump between the first act of Wicked and second act of Wicked. And so
that's right.
You have to communicate via the costumes that these college schoolgirls have grown up and matured into, adult women.
That's
and
right.
That is I think that's a really interesting task to take on, an interesting storytelling task to take on. How did you try to do that with the costumes sort of in general?
Well, our primary characters, Elphaba and Glinda, they have made huge choices about their lives and how they're going to move forward. So we're left with that, with the climax of Elphaba jumping out the window and taking hold of her power on her broom and riding off as the savior of the animal community, and then also ostensibly fleeing the threat of being the Wicked Witch of the West. the image of the Wicked Witch of the West is really from the 1939 film. The original movie made it threatening, and then to take that and re-envision, how does that relate to a modern audience of today, and how do we create a character of Elphaba that Cynthia Erivo can step into and really make soar, quite literally.
Literally.
And so it was, an amazing challenge that was always creative, always engaging as far as the collaboration with Jon and the rest of the team. It just was full of creativity.
After the break, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande share how they trained, transformed, and pushed themselves to embody Elphaba and Glinda in a way that was truly unlimited.
As a storyteller growing up watching movies, this is the dream. This is universal.
Welcome to Scene on the Screen, hosted by me, Jacqueline Coley from Rotten Tomatoes. We're your all-access pass to the people who bring your favorite Universal films to life. We play games. These are based off of quotes. Suppose a task cannot be completed.
From Wild Robot.
Talk movies.
It literally is a moving painting.
And spill the tea.
I hit our stunt performer so hard, he had the imprint of my shoe on his chest.
Check out Scene on the Screen, available now on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms.
Welcome back. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande's transformation didn't end with makeup and costumes. It took mind, body, and spirit. Bringing Elphaba and Glinda to life meant months of preparation and discipline, balancing heart-stopping performances with the relentless pace of shooting 2 films at once.
For me, it really just came down to preparation. I spent so much time before I even got to London with the script and reading between the lines and kind of trying to make her into as much of a real person as I possibly could. I thought, like, if I have a map of all of these traumas and childhood experiences, and I designed what her home life was growing up, and I am able to know her in the way that I know myself, I'll be able to kind of have certain triggers at my fingertips so that I know why each thing hurts the way it does, or I know why I'm playing this part for as long as I'm playing this part.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, she has a big arc in the first movie, of course, but she only goes so far, and it's like, why is that? So in the second movie, of course, it goes further, but I thought if I have a real understanding of who she is at the core, even if it's things you don't ever get to see in the movie, if you feel them, that will help me switch back and forth easier.
Whoa, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I had a kind of a color coding system. My acting coach, Nancy, and I had little tabs.
Wait, tell me about this. Yeah.
We would tab each scene with which kind of like either insecurity was present or which little incident was tapping on which childhood wound or things like that. It really helped me. It helped me go back and forth. And aside from preparing in that way, in like a super actory way, I'm a Stella Adler girl.
Yes, on that. Yes, Adler. Yes, pop off.
I think just getting to know her as well as I possibly could inside and out was the most helpful thing. Because it's like, we know the scenes, we know our lines, but it's just having a clear intention and a clear inside mapping of what's showing up for her in each thing, because everything's connected.
It's so nice to be able to talk about it because I couldn't talk about it whilst we were talking about the last movie, but it was there. It's all there. So it's hard to explain. No, we're doing this all at the same time. So whilst I'm doing No Good Deed, I'm also then going back and doing like Defying Gravity and then looking at like starting the beginnings of it and looking at different parts. It's so interesting that now I can talk about, this is like this is the journey that we were taking, all of the training that we were doing for flying. Because in the first movie, we do a few stunts, and that the last song, Defying Gravity, is where all of those stunts sort of go.
It's me! It's me!
And then film 2 is all stunt work. I'm always on a wire. I'm always in the sky. I'm always flying. I'm always on a broom. It's all stunt work.
I mean, you're an athlete. I know that you run marathons. You're a consummate athlete. But how did you like physically have to prepare? Like, did you train? Did you work out?
I was training the whole time.
Yeah.
I was on a treadmill at stupid o'clock in the morning every single day. I really was. And on the days where it wasn't so early, I had a trainer come in and I was working with him. I was doing Pilates as well. Some days I would do a workout after a rehearsal, or if it was like an earlier day, I would do the workout at work because we set up there was a gym that was set up there, and we'd work out there. So it was constant.
And then you gotta go sit in a chair for 6 hours.
Yeah, so every day was a 2 hour, 45 minutes to 3 hour makeup session, and then it was an hour and a half D-rig session. A D-rig is when everything comes off. And everything from like my scalp was green. So,
yeah.
So it wasn't just D-rigging like my face. The green had to come off my scalp. So the makeup was prolific. You know, it's so interesting because, you know, we talk about. I mean, those are films that have people doing the prosthetics for a few months or a month or two, or like a 1 month. Or I was doing it. This was a 9-month filming process. So from day 1 to day, I don't even know.
Yeah.
200 and something.
200 and something, yeah.
It was every day, 3 hours in a chair, sometimes more. Every day was an early day. Every day started between, I think my pickup was sometimes 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., and it would vacillate. Some days I would be lucky to have like a 6 to 7 o'clock. That would be really, really fancy. And then if we had like run on days and they went a little bit later, then we'd have a late call. But mostly it was 5 o'clock because the makeup takes such a long time. You need it to be done before you begin the day.
Before you begin the day, you have to. Wow.
Yeah.
And okay, so when, like on average, when did you sleep? Like, how did you sleep? When sleep?
How many hours?
Yeah, how many hours and like when? I don't even know.
It takes a second to wind down. I would always shower because the green gets everywhere.
Yeah.
So by the time I get to bed, it's like 12 and then I'm up at 3 a.m.
And you're up at 3 a.m. and then you gotta sing
I'm on a treadmill. I'm getting ready and I'm in the car by 5.
Oh my literal God. And you can't get sick because you gotta sing live.
No, and when I did get sick, it like everything, it's insane because it was right in the middle of like needing to do no gadid. No, it was in the middle of doing Defying Gravity. And so it was paused. I had to pause.
You have to pause because you're only a human actually at the end of the day.
Yeah. So you're just desperately trying to take care of yourself the whole entire time.
Oh my gosh. And I know, because we've talked about this, you are a wellness queen. And
I have my vitamins in my little baggie that come with me every single day, my little protein bars that I need, the snacks that I take. I'm that person. Everything is packed and ready for the day. The teas that I want, the water, the electrolytes, I have the whole 9 yards.
That is so wild. And now I'm also thinking about, and then you're also like, some days you're going from, adult alphabet to college alphabet on top of all of this, and you have to keep track of that and also deliver a scintillating screen performance. Wow. I don't know how she does it.
I try my best. I had a really beautiful time doing it, but it took a lot. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that went into it, and we were tired a lot of the time, but we were overjoyed by how much we could make these characters real.
I mean, it's extraordinary. We had a huge thing in front of us, and we just had to focus on the work and not sort of worry about what was on the other side of it. We had to kind of focus on honoring these characters and the story, and not let the monsters of what are people going to think, or is it going to be good enough? Is it going to be what the fans want? We had to not let that in the room while we were creating it.
Yeah.
And we did the best we could to just keep our blinders on and focus. So for that to be on the other side of this extraordinary creative endeavor was just so unbelievably fulfilling, just like on a human level, so moving and so deeply rewarding. And I don't know that I've ever experienced anything quite like it. And I have such incredibly loving fans, and they've been so kind to me. But this was just something otherworldly. I don't know that any of us could have expected or prepared for what the Wicked fans have shown us.
As filming came to an end, the challenge wasn't just finishing 2 massive movies. It was honoring the magic that audiences around the world already believed in. Here's producer Marc Platt and director Jon M on carrying that responsibility all the way through to the final frame.
From where I sat, I felt as though one of the things that made me insecure that took so long was I needed to be the guardian of the fandom, and satisfying fans. But at the same time, I wanted to make sure I had an environment where the brilliant imagination and genius of Jon Chu could reinterpret and find his way to tell the story. And I felt so much confidence in that because he loved the original Wicked so much. And the same with my designers and the camera and all of it. And so it was, for me, a constant tug of war of I've got to give the space for this wonderful story to tell the story his way, and yet make sure that something isn't being left out that needs to. And we used to call it Bible, and Jon would come running over, is this Bible or not Bible? And if I thought it was, and he had a different version of it, we would sometimes say, let's shoot it both ways, so you have your way. But often it was like, no, stretch it. It's the right thing to do. And because the piece had been written by our original creators, it's based on Gregory's book, and it's Stephen and Winnie who did the adaptation, again, along with Dana Fox, who brought fresh eyes to it in the screenplay. I felt confident in knowing how far one could go and not, and in being blessed, with being led by Jon, who infused everybody on that crew, hundreds of people, and all of the cast with the same kind of love and respect of the original, to honor it, but also with the understanding that we have to deliver in cinema what you can on stage and take it to a different level.
Because that worked, and because they invited us into their lives, like our little summer camp got into people's lives, they became a part of our life, and getting to talk to the fans, new fans, people who had never seen Wizard of Oz, to people who loved Wizard of Oz, to people who had only seen Wicked and never seen the second half, and even left the show when they went to go see it for the second act so that they could save it for our movie. I wanted to make sure that this completed the journey. We're setting up so much in movie 1, and we get to deliver it both visually and emotionally. We get to deliver a movie 2.
2 films, 1 extraordinary journey. Wicked reminds us that great stories don't just transport us, they grow with us. And the best part, we're only just beginning. Join us next week as we continue our exploration behind the scenes with the cast and creative team as they share stories about the bonds they made on this epic journey. And don't forget, Wicked for Good hits theaters on November 21st. The official Wicked podcast is a Straw Hut Media production in association with Universal Pictures and Vanity Fair, hosted by Chris Murphy. Video, soundtrack, and music from Wicked and Wicked for Good, courtesy of Universal Pictures. Produced and edited by Maggie Bowles, Ryan Tillotson, and Madison Cross. Mixing, sound design, and video editing by Silvana Alcala. Additional graphics by Ali Ahmed and Anna Claire Munoz. Production assistant Ashley Kane. But special thanks to our partners at Universal Pictures: Nicole Cuenca, Jennifer Chamberlain, Holly Vandervoort, Dean Smith, Madeline Marfis, Madison Fishman, Samantha Duarte, Katie Malley, Abby Holmes, Nikki Walsh, Marissa Mahoney, Allie Grove, and Vanessa Nakara. New episodes every Thursday. See you next week.
I sort of know that I can gatekeep this character. Probably not the best word to use.